Hi, I'm Sonia Luna, CEO and founder of Aviva Spectrum, and today's interview, which I'm very excited, is with Jay Qatato. Welcome, Jay.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you for having me today.
Well, like I was mentioning earlier, I got to know your work because of the article, and I really gravitated towards it because the profession sometimes is more ticking and tying and should be more advisor. So, that being said, can you share with our listeners, what was the inspiration for writing the article, Auditor or Advisor, for the IAA magazine?
I think you mentioned it there briefly, and that was, in today's business environment and the businesses that us auditors typically support, they're in a business environment and they're competing with someone else. So how is it that we're in audit and we're not competing with someone else? And in order to compete in this field, you just can't be an auditor. You have to be an advisor. So it was to elevate that competency and demonstrate that we must be able to add value to the business. There's more to it than ticking and tying. Sure, the ticking and tying helps you tell your story, but to basically to say, hey, we can't be complacent anymore. We have to be those advisors to the business and not just the auditor. And we're competing with each other and we're competing with others in this industry. So that was my main inspiration for writing that article. The second part of it was to give people ways in which they could actually move their group from auditor to advisor. I mean, sometimes you hear people say you need to actually move from the auditor to advisor, but the question then is, what can we do in order to do that? And so in my group over the past 2 years, I've been at Calpine now for 2.5 years, we wanted to do this, and we started to brainstorm about ways we could do it. And so the article demonstrates sometimes simple ways that you can just move the perception from being just an auditor to an advisor. Obviously, your work product has to back that up. But if you're not involved in the business, if you're not volunteering, if you're not having meetings on different floors and being seen, I mean, there's no way anyone can perceive you other than an auditor when you want to be perceived as an advisor.
Mm-hmm. And I love the beginning of the article about, hello, I'm from Internal Audit. I'm here to help. That was the first beginning part of your article. And you continue in the article saying, like, okay, who's really said this? Okay, who's really gone in there to a department that you're about to conduct an audit, whether it's operational, SOX, et cetera, and you're there to say, hey, I'm not here just to tick and tie. I'm actually here to be part of the team. I want us to win. And it's rare because I don't know if it's just culturally we get into internal auditing or auditing in general, and then our senior, for a staff just tells us, here's your audit work program, get this done, get the technical stuff done. And by the time you're a manager, that's when the relationships kind of kick in, where you realize, okay, I've got the technical piece good, okay, there's always, we always learn and continue to grow in the technical aspect, but then the relationship building is sometimes a struggle for certain folks because they were told to be a technician the whole time, and then they got to put the switch on and go, I really need to start building better relationships, and especially those in public accounting, as you probably know, working from KPMG, those relationships matter. Not only internally but with your clients. And I wanted to bring in a different kind of question because this is something that's going to be a hot topic not only next year and the following year, but it's just in general being talked about by the finance group right now as well as external auditors. And, I wanted to bring up about how can the internal audit group, how can being an advisor rather than an auditor help an organization, and then also kind of putting it in the context of what most organizations are going to deal with soon, which is that new revenue recognition standard.
Well, you've hit on a number of good points there, and I think the first thing that we make sure that my group knows is that you cannot audit a business you don't understand. So let me repeat that again. You cannot audit a business you don't understand. So no matter what regulation is coming up, whether it be this enhanced and new revenue recognition, or whether it be depreciation expense, or whether it be a system implementation, you must understand the business. And to be an advisor, for those that need assistance, and many companies, all of us, even those of us in audit need assistance. That's why we have a quality assurance review process that we go through, and you reach out to an advisor for that. So we want to be that person or that group or that individual that gets that first phone call from the business to help them manage their risks, may help them strategically, or just may help them in their decision-making process. So we want that first phone call. And you're right, it's the relationships that matter. Now, of course, you have to be a good technician. You have to be considered knowledgeable of the business, and you do things in order to gain people's confidence in that space, including your work product on a daily basis is very important. But then you have to build those relationships. So while you mentioned it, you're taught often to be a technician, and once you become a manager, all of a sudden, wait a minute, I need these relationships because they do matter. With my group, what we've done is we've instilled in them opportunities to build relationships even at their level. So we encourage our group, and we budget our group, and we provide guidance to them and actually go with them and bring them to different meetings so that they can also develop the relationships at that level, because I may not be the one to get that first phone call. Sometimes I'm the third one to get that call, but one of my team members was the first one to get that call. And that's what it's all about, is being there for the business, for them to see you a certain way, and for you to be consistent, dependable, and knowledgeable in order to be seen as that advisor. So with the new revenue recognition, just with like anything else, or when revenue recognition first came out, SB 101 for the software industry, and then when Sox came out, revenue recognition was one of the most common reasons for these material misstatements. All I have to say, it's no different. You have to just understand the business and understand how your business fits or doesn't fit relative to that regulation. So you're going to have to do some homework. You're going to have to read extra. You're going to have to attend sessions inside and outside your company. You're going to have to listen to this radio show and other shows and be involved, or else you're not going to be able to provide that advisor relationship to your internal and or external clients.
And I've noticed I volunteer my time for the Institute of Internal Auditors locally here in Los Angeles, and I've noticed in the Chief Audit Executive Roundtable that I help facilitate some of the topics, et cetera. Getting involved, meaning you get out of something as much as you put into it. So the Chief Audit Executives, I can tell you that are involved, have a lot of peers to talk to about the revenue recognition standards, and more importantly, what their companies are doing, but more importantly, their peers. What are their peers think? How are they thinking about it? And there's a very collaborative discussion in those groups. So we may not be able to tell management this is the debits and credits based on independence, et cetera, but having that conversation to say, what's the timeline? Okay, when is everything really due? And, having some knowledge of the 5 steps that need to be done, and then having management meetings saying, okay, well, eventually we're going to have to validate these steps and or some of these contracts. And you're right, you have to understand the business. And sometimes getting the salespeople who are initiating these revenue contracts, right, they need to be in the room to say, this is the reason why we're structuring these deals this way. So revenue recognition isn't supposed to make us create new contracts just because the debits and credits would be easier for management to do. This is how the business gets done, and this is where it is today. Here's where it might be in the future, because this is where the marketplace is taking us. Hence, the auditors need to be in the room in those discussions to say, okay, great, that's fine. I need to understand the why factor, and then what would be the right audit procedures. So that way when the sales or marketing team gets together to adjust certain terms or conditions, et cetera, they not only understand the business reason why, but then they can have a very frank dialogue to say, okay, I need to audit completeness, accuracy, et cetera, of this data. So let's get together on what we can agree that can be done in order to make our jobs work well and continue to have the business run effectively the way the company's customers want the business to be running. So
yeah, I've never been in a meeting where anyone said, hey, we've got to make sure our business is done this way so the debits and credits line up. I mean, that's never a conversation. You want to be in those meetings to understand the business, and what you're hoping while you're in there is, A, you can provide some guidance, but you get the question asked from the business to you, hey, what do you need in audit to do your job? Because but based on what you just said, I mean, you get out whatever you put in. So if people see you providing the guidance, providing information that they can use, giving them opportunities or highlighting potential risks as it relates to the business, it just by nature they're going to ask you, okay, well, hey, thanks for everything that you've done, but what do you need to do your job? And then that's when you can be prepared to come in and say, well, from my end, we got to look at completeness, we got to look at accuracy. Now, there's some accounting things that we'll have to consider, but, I'm here to understand the business. Never have I been in a meeting where anyone said, well, we can't make that transaction happen that way because there's something called the debits and credits that don't line up. The business doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and my point in making that is I've been in some meetings where people have that big sigh, and go, oh, man, now I got to, write up a different memo because now you guys are creating this, extra, line item of revenue, and, they have this defeatist attitude where business needs to be done. The customers want a particular service or product, et cetera, from you, and it may be more work, okay, but we're here to be advisors, not just an auditor to tick and tie and not make our jobs super easy. It's about understanding what we need to get done and for the company's sake, right, to grow the organization, and it's having the right attitude with the management team saying, okay, well, where are we today? Where are we going to go in the future? Okay, how does this team get together and work effectively to make sure we are dotting our I's and crossing our T's for the paperwork that, look, none of us really enjoy creating a lot of paperwork, but it has to be done. How can we do it better than our competitor down the road? That would be one way where I get, rally the troops, so to speak, and say, look, all of us have to figure this out. The question is who's going to do it well and successfully and have the most effectiveness in terms of our audit work papers compared to ABC down the road, because they're going to have to do the same thing too.
Exactly. Anytime you can minimize effort, leverage systems, ensure alignment between the business, the strategy, and, of course, the back office, i.e. accounting, you're going to be way ahead of the game. And I think, that's where auditors' roles / advisors' roles come in. We're the ones that see upstream and downstream of all processes. So it's on us to help highlight those areas and make recommendations so that we can have efficiencies, we can leverage our existing systems where possible, or fill in gaps where individuals in particular roles outside of audit may not have that upstream and downstream knowledge. And so that's where your value is, in my opinion. Again,
Jay, I want to say thank you for this very insightful interview, and I'm very confident our listeners got a lot of value from listening to your perspective about, moving away from an auditor to an advisor. And as a reminder to our listeners, you can find Jay's article. It's in the IIA magazine, the online version. So again, thank you, Jay, for coming on our radio show today.
Hey, thank you for your time today. Thank you for the invite. I thoroughly enjoyed it. If there's anything else you need from me or my organization, please let me know. We'd be happy to help out. Again, thank you.
Great. This is Sonia Luna, CEO and founder of Aviva Spectrum, signing off.